Steel City Stitchers here. Welcome back. Today's video is a little bit different than what you guys are used to seeing from us. In our last video, I had mentioned that I've been doing a lot of tea dyeing, and a few of you had commented that you wanted to see a tutorial and see how I did my tea dyeing. So that's what I'm going to show you guys today. And I apologize for this is a weird spot in my kitchen to be filming from, so if you lose part of my head, I apologize. I'll try to keep in mind what you guys are seeing there. So basically I'm going to start off just with the materials that you need. It's nothing fancy. Everything that I use is just stuff from my kitchen. So obviously the first thing is you need your fabric. Now I've tea dyed with old Aida that I've had. I've tea dyed linen, not a lot of it, but I've done it, same technique. I have tea dyed colored Aida, so I've had like a light pink or like a light yellow that I've actually dyed. But most recently, in large batches, I have simply gone online and I have purchased pre-cut sheets of white Aida. So this is what they look like, and they come just folded in a pack of, I've seen packs of 8, I've seen packs of 6, so you can just kind of buy what you need. I've also purchased like a giant roll of Aida. Unless you're doing crazy bulk, I don't recommend it. Cutting it up and getting it like all the same size is like close to impossible. So that's why I love these, because they're all pre-cut, so they're all going to be the exact same size. So obviously you need your Aida. I use just a basic kitchen tongs and a ladle. And then I've got, it's actually on my stove right now, just a pot, and you can see it's steaming there. I've got it going. And then I just use a box of Lipton tea. So when I bought this tea, I just looked for the biggest box I could find, just because I knew that I was going to be doing a lot. But obviously if you're just doing like a single piece for a project, you only need about 6 to 8 tea bags. And then you'll need a mason jar, and this mason jar will hold 1 to 2 pieces of this fabric. So I usually do singles, but if you want to do 2 of them, I've done that as well, and it works just fine. So you'll need a mason jar, or however many mason jars you want to do if you want to do multiple at a time. Like I usually do 4 at a time just because I do them in bulk. All right, so basically, like I said, very, very simple. All you're going to do is you're going to take your Aida and you're going to wet it. So I just run it under the sink and I crumple it up into a ball. No technique there. I literally just crumple it up like I'm crumpling up a piece of paper. And you're just going to shove it in the bottom of your jar. So it sits at the bottom. It's nice and wet so that it's pliable, because this fabric is pretty stiff when you get it. So you shove it in the bottom of your jar, and then all you're going to do is you're going to brew some tea. So I usually I fill this pot up about halfway, and I've got 8 tea bags in there right now. Obviously, the more water you have to tea bags, the lighter it's going to be. And I'm going to show you some examples of kind of different hues and tones of that tea color that you get, and it's, again, it's just based on how many tea bags you have in there. So that might be something that you have to play with. But I've kind of found that the perfect color is about half of that pot to 8 tea bags. I put it on the stove and I brew it until it's boiling, like rapidly boiling. And then I just turn the heat off and I let it sit. And I don't really time it. I just kind of let it sit until I'm ready to use it. So what you're going to do is you're going to take your mason jar and you're just going to ladle your tea into your jar, and you don't have to cover it all up. I usually fill it about that much, and then I just take my tongs and I shove the fabric down in there as tight as I can get it. Okay, all right, so that's now going to sit. I've let it sit. I have found that the longer you let it sit doesn't necessarily make it darker. I just kind of let it sit until I can see the color of the fabric to where I like it. So once it's the color that you like, you're going to take your tongs and you're going to pull your fabric out. Now this is piping hot and soaking wet, so just be very, very careful when you pull it out. So you're gonna pull it out. I usually just kind of squeeze the excess water out of it. And then you're just gonna get a baking sheet and you're going to stick your fabric on a baking sheet, and I crumple it up so it's about like this when I set it on my baking sheet, okay? Now I have had great success with baking the color into this fabric. I've also had massive fails. In fact, the last batch I did, I burnt all of my fabric. Lovely. So my recommendation and what I have found to be the best is 200 degrees for 10 minutes. Keep an eye on it, because if your oven runs hotter, or if you don't set a timer and you forget about it, you will burn your fabric. So keep an eye on it. And basically, when it comes out of the oven, it's not really gonna be dry. It's still gonna be pretty wet. And then I just leave it out until it's fully dry. I don't really touch it. I don't do much with it. I just leave it there. And then when it's dry, it's going to look like this mess. It's got strings on the edge. It's totally wrinkled. But you can see the oven is kind of baked in that color. So all I do from here is I take some fabric scissors and I cut off my pieces. Now you could serge this if you wanted to. I do not sew. I hate sewing machines. It's not my thing. So I don't serge any of my fabric, but if you do serge or if you have a sewing machine, that's certainly a really good option. And I would imagine that it would remedy all of these frays. So I just carefully cut them off or pull them off if they're easy to pull. And then once I've done that, I set my pieces on a towel and I iron them. So here is my finished product, and the light's shining through there, but you can see that mottled look, and I get that from crumpling it up and crumpling it in my jar. The back is usually, or sometimes I guess, a little different. Like you can see this one has this sort of mark there. So that's basically it. And so here's kind of one variation of the color. And then this was a different variation, and you can see really where the tea was hitting my fabric in the jar and where it was crumpled. So this is totally flat, but you can see obviously the creases there, so, or the tea marks. So two totally different looks, same exact method, it was just a matter of how I crumpled it and how I had it in my jar. So that is basically it, folks. And then once you have it ironed and flat, it is ready to go to be stitched on. So hope you enjoyed the video, and we will see you next time. Next time you'll see all 4 of us together again. See you later.